Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, as the case may be, wherever you are watching this live stream from. And if you're watching a live stream, it's good evening for me. I believe it's good afternoon for two of the fellas, and good evening. No, good evening for three of us, and good afternoon for two of the fellas. Uh, but you're all very welcome to another episode. Call it what you want of Red Fellas. It's Sunday night. It's the only place to be after Love Island. I accept that. I get that. People are saying, Love Island epic today. I don't know what that means. Like I don't know. Keith's not here to fill us in either. So that comment's gone away. I think it's gone way above our heads. I don't think anyone here out of the panelists has got an idea. What? Oh, okay.
Just
Okay. Connor's about to spoil
no,
it. Go on.
no, 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 no. Just I don't watch it religiously, but my friends do, so I get the snippets of what's happening. So apparently, the guy who looks like Graziano Pella, who used to play for Southampton, apparently he's a very good character and he's quite good. So I think a lot of people want him to win because if you win, actually one person wins and they have to decide if they share or keep the cash. So I'm hoping that he's the first person to just keep the cash himself. So I think that's maybe what they're talking about. But as I say, I don't know what happened tonight.
Yeah. See what I mean? Like as you was talking, like Jamie thought, what have I signed up to, right, as my debut? Evan was just like miles away. Evan was like looking into the sky, like, and Steve pretended he was on the phone. That's how interested we are in Love Island chat,
That's it.
right? But it is what it is. But Conroy's filled in the people that, wanted
Try
to
to.
know. Exactly. There we go. Look, had to be always one idiot. Always has to be one idiot in the chat. Oh, look, it's Omar today. Thoughts on the Love Island dumping boys. Now again, what the fuck does that mean? Like, I don't know, Conrad. I'm not even going to ask you what that means. Yeah, listen. If I had the authority, the power, anything, I would ban. I would ban. Um, he says, "Salam, Grizz, and apparently it's 4 a.m. in Bangkok. Amazing. Big up and best of luck for the show. Thank you very much." When does it finish, Conroy? When does Love Island we can get back to normality? Like, what's going on? I don't
I
like
think
these
it,
10
I think
p.m.
it is.
finishes.
I think it is most of the summer. So obviously, I think if it starts, I don't know. Does it start in June? It's 2 months, I think, overall. So I don't know if it's like middle of August. I can't remember when it started, but I'd imagine it is 2 months. So potentially middle of August, or maybe
Oh,
the end of July. I might have got it wrong, but I think it is 2 months.
wow. If that's the case, my God, yeah, we're gonna have to really reschedule or think about
We
rescheduling.
could do
Oh no,
watch
next
alongs.
week. Oh no, hold on. We have some good news. Next
Next week.
weekend is the final.
So there you go. So
So it finishes 1st of August. This is amazing. Suddenly my mood has changed. But people, as you come in, don't forget to hit the like button. We've got a action-packed, jam-packed chat ready today. Evan, how you doing, my friend? I know, we haven't started on the right foot with all this Love Island chat, but we're going to get into some of the stuff that you really like talking about. So how you doing?
I'm doing good, and you said just a minute or two ago that you wish you could ban Love Island. You actually can. If you go to Twitter, you can mute words and phrases, and that's what I've
Does
done
it
because
work?
oh yeah, it works. So I never see the word Love Island, and then I even when people tweet about the names of the people on there enough, I even um mute the names as well because I had to do it because half of the people I was following were just unfollowable because of Love Island. So
Yeah, I
you
need
know,
to, I need to, I need to work on that. There's a few
yeah.
things in that case I should ban, and few words I should type in, but you can give me some hints afterwards. Steve, how you doing, my friend? Everything good in your part of the world?
I'm good. Far too much Love Island chat on Red Fellas tonight, boys. So can we just draw a line under it,
Yeah, yeah,
please,
yeah,
and
yeah.
move on?
By all means,
Horrible,
by all
horrible
means.
thing that it is. Evan, that's a great idea. But is it enough just to mute them? Is it enough because you still know it exists?
Yeah, true.
That's true as well. And of course, we'd like to all give a warm welcome to Jamie Keegan, who's making his debut on the Red Fellas podcast. He's been on a call-in show a couple of times before, but it's his debut. Jamie, you're very welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Grizz. It's a pleasure to be here. And I wore this. Don't kill me because I'm a Yank. Kill me because I'm an FSG stan. So we can get that out of the way first and foremost.
Okay.
It's REDFELLAS on a Sunday night. Can't get bigger, can't get better. I'm up for it.
Great stuff. Amazing. People are asking us all kinds of questions. Hey, panel, what do you think of the Latino group pick? I'm going to try to find that Latino group pick, and then we can make our comments and give our opinions on it. But Evan, only one place to start, and the place to start is Austria. Have I got that right? They're in Austria, right? Because that's where our team is. Our team's in Austria, in the middle of I think it's in the middle now, because there's been a couple of days. So it's in the middle of a gruesome, tiresome, grueling, I should say, not gruesome. It may be gruesome. We can have a look at the pictures later. They may be gruesome. But a grueling, tiresome training camp in Austria. This is where the hard work's done, right? We've had a couple of training sessions, open training sessions, where we've played a few teams, little bum teams like Man United and whatever, just to get the cobwebs off our legs. But now this is where the hard work is done, right? You've been keeping up with the boys, watching all the videos of them running around and whatnot.
Absolutely. Said it last time as well. Preseason, in a way, is my favorite time of the year as being a football fan, because it's all very low pressure. Doesn't really matter. Everyone's just like here for the vibes and the aesthetics of beautiful Austria, which I have to say, I think it's my favorite Liverpool preseason destination. I think we've been going there for a few years now. I love that it's a regular thing, because it just looks stunning. The pitch just sits in between those mountains, and it's always like bright and very sunny. Looks really nice. So yeah, I've been keeping up. I've been indulging in the content. Got my LFC TV subscription active during the summer, so it's a special time. I mean, look at that. It's like Lord of the Rings. It's like where the hobbits live. It's like the Shire.
Amazing. Obviously, shout out to my friends. This is Anfield, who's the go-to website for all things Liverpool related. So big up those guys.
If you're gonna have a gruesome / grueling training session, Grizz, I mean, you might as well have it there, right?
I mean, look at this. I mean, the only thing more beautiful is probably my garden.
Wow.
I can't think of anything. Look at this. This is just, it's just beautiful, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
But they've been working hard. But it was good to see Cade Gordon as well. By the way, people, Cade Gordon is out there as well. It's the go-to place, isn't it, Conroy? This is when we know when it gets really, really serious. Hopefully, people can see the pictures that I've just sort of gone through there. It's really the go-to place, isn't it? This is when you know that training is getting serious. The shit gets serious now.
Yeah, I think this is when you can tell it's the preparation, or he's going to not play the full game for the team. It starts the Charity Shield and the upcoming fixture against Fulham. But you could tell he's got a good feeling in his mind of what team's going to start, and will get as much minutes as in the legs. Obviously, follow the sports science and the fitness and recovery coaches on how much they should have at that time. Thought it was interesting as well that it was quite strict with Robertson just getting 45 minutes as well. So you can obviously tell that you get the feeling that in previous years when we've played there as well, and obviously when we've played a RB team, it always seems to be a good result or a good performance, even in the Champions League or in the friendlies as well. So for me, you can tell that, I know we're going to talk about it, I'm not going to spoil what I'm going to say, but it gives you a good indication of what he's going to do with the Charity Shield and with the Fulham game. So I think it's these are in pre-season in general, guys. I'll be honest, I'm not like in it. Like, I'm not to generally. It's a break for me, in the sense of I love what we do, but it's quite all-encompassing as well when you analyse every game down to the details. Love it, but I think pre-season, if I went like that for every pre-season game as well, I think I'd be exhausted. So for me, it's like you keep an eye on it, you see what happens. But as I say, we never won a game for pre-season and won the league. So for me, you can take positives from it, but I think there's an argument to say you can you might not learn loads either. You know, it is what it is. I think it's more on what you're seeing other than the results.
Jamie, how do you find preseason normally, and has it been any different this season? Just very, very quickly and briefly, I'm the opposite of Conroy. I'm addicted to Liverpool. So preseason, training videos, any chance I get to sort of see anything to do with Liverpool, I'm addicted. So I'm the opposite. What you like, and has it been any different this time around?
Well, I think generally the most important work will happen behind closed doors. At this point in the year, right, we don't have so many crucial games. And so we'll really get those hard yards in. I feel like this training camp is going to be a lot of endurance. You're going to see the boys dead after training. They're going to be dead tired. Because going from August 6th all the way up until the middle point of November, we're going. And so all of the hard work and structure that we need to build off of will happen in this camp. And so how much of that will we show? I think we'll see glimpses of it, but mostly for me in preseason, I like to see how fresh the boys are getting, because as I assume with preseason, it's about getting on a chronological build to hit the right crescendo at the right time for day one. And from my knowledge, it's not great. I don't necessarily know if they're planning for everyone to be at 100% fitness levels day one versus Fulham August 6th, or if it's something where progressively it will go. Because number one, and we'll get into this later, this season is different from every other season in the way that the games are jam-packed. We'll get 42% of the games out of the way before the Christmas 2-game period, and then we'll be at 50% by the end of the year, and then have 18 Premier League games in about 21 weeks. And I don't know if that's normally the case. So I'm curious to see how fitness-wise we will approach this camp, knowing what it will mean for the duration of the season.
Steve, by all accounts, it's that guy again, that young man. We can bring in all the youngsters we want. We can bring in Darwin Nunez, who's supposed to be, an absolute machine, quick, has endurance, pressing machine, Fabio Carvalho. And then we obviously got the usual suspects. But again, it's that man, James Milner, who's apparently leading the way in terms of setting examples. They done a 500-meter run where he smashed everyone in his group. This is invaluable, isn't it, when we talk about these kind of things?
Absolutely. This is where he sets the standard for the younger players. We've got younger players coming into the squad. Carvalho, Elliott's kind of having a second tilt at being with the first team after his bad injury. Curtis Jones has got improvements to make. Darwin Nunez has joined. It's Diaz's first pre-season. Somebody has to show these guys what is the minimum standard. So next pre-season, they want to come back and they want to be the James Milner, because who knows if he's going to be with us in 12 months' time. But this is what it's about. It is about fitness. It is about going into the season being absolutely ready. We're now at a stage where, as we saw last season, if you lose 2 games, you can lose the league. So you've got to be 100% ready for the first game of the season. So the Charity Shield is your last opportunity to make wholesale changes and tweak little things. But it's interesting, and as other guys have said, we'll get into it a little bit later. We've got 2 very, very different games in terms of the season curtain raiser being the Charity Shield, and then the first game of the season away at Fulham. And it'll be really interesting to see what the boys think about how we approach those.
Yeah, interesting how we're going to approach those 2 games. I know you, when I asked what should we talk about, you mentioned that, and I thought that's a very good point, how we deal with those two games. Evan, I haven't spoken to you about the last game before we set off for Austria. So obviously a couple of games against Premier League opposition in terms of Palace and United. We know how they went. Then we go to Germany to play Leipzig. How did you find that game? How did you think? Did you notice anything? Did you notice the increase in intensity that you hoped to see, or was you still okay with it? And who was the standout for you? Notice I said standout. I know there's probably a few, but who was the standout for you?
I think there was a noticeable change in intensity and sharpness just across the board, compared to the previous games against Palace and United. Um, in those earlier games against Palace and United, I thought only our stars seemed sharp, and maybe they weren't even sharp. Maybe they just looked really good compared to the kids from the under 23s or folks who are probably on their way out of the club. Um, there was definitely a bit more of an intensity. The game had more of a physical edge to it, and I think this is how most preseasons go, and how most preseasons have gone in my lifetime is no matter the manager, they sort of you just turn the dial a bit. You just crank up the intensity with each passing week. You do that in training, with the lactate test and training in places like Switzerland with high altitude, and then you inevitably reap the rewards. And there's a reason preseason is held in such high regard. There's a reason that missing preseason is considered such a huge blow, both to the player, the team, and the manager. So I really enjoyed the game, not only because we got to see a glut of goals, which is obviously the best part about preseason, is smashing teams 6-0 and watching your new signings run around and look great. I got some clarification in not just against Leipzig, but against our last three opponents together. I got some clarification on whether or not Carvalho and Elliott are ready for top flight physical English football. And we already had the evidence to suggest that they are, because we've seen kids look great at U18, U23 level, and then they get thrown into the Premier League and they look completely out of sorts with the intensity, the physicality. We've even seen these high-rated youngsters get loans to the lower leagues, like the Championship, and they look completely out of sorts because it's they're playing against grown men. Grown man strength is a real thing. But the reason I say we have the evidence for those guys is Carvalho is coming off of a season where he was one of the best players in the Championship. Harvey Elliott had that very successful loan at Blackburn during lockdown football, where he looked like one of the best players in the Championship. So that they've proven it at that level. Can it translate to our system? Can it translate to the upper echelon of football that is Liverpool? And I think from what I've seen from them so far, obviously we got a smaller sample size from Harvey Elliott around this time last year, before he got injured. But can they play in the midfield? Can they understand the complexities of triggering presses and passing to the right person? I think the maturity and the decision making is completely there for them to make an impact now. So that was my big takeaway. You said I might have a few standouts. My standouts are the talented teenage duo, who I'm so happy that they're close friends, right? They apparently, they've known each other for years coming through at Fulham. So, I mean, that chemistry can only help, and it'll definitely make for some great content and photo ops, and it already has.
You're on mute, Grizz.
You're on mute. Come on, Keith. Sort it out.
Fucking hell. But Conroy, I haven't had a chance to speak to you either about it. How did you find it? Good run out or much? Yeah. I mean, look, I found the first half boring. I struggled to sort of, I struggled to enjoy it, even though it's Liverpool, and I've earlier said that I look forward to watching the under 16s if I get a chance. But I definitely am with Evan about the second half. The youngsters showed something different, a hunger and a desire to, and it's funny because we may get onto it. Thiago spoke about how they sat him, Fabinho, and Naby were sitting there and talking about the youngsters and the passion and the desire and the skill, they were showing to sort of make this uncomfortable as possible for Jurgen Klopp in terms of selecting a team or midfield, as the case may be, for those opening games. Any standouts for you, and what impressed you the most?
I think a few standouts. I'll not obviously repeat the ones that Evans said, because I think he covered a lot of it. I would actually say, shout out to Harvey Davis, who came on. I thought he was really showed he's really good at his feet. There's obviously, it's not my point, but it's not rocket science that Liverpool have got something going on with the style of keeper they're producing and the ability they've got for their feet as well as their hands. And you could tell that with him. I think he's 19, looks very good up and coming. And we're not going to get crazy here with it because Kelleher's performed at in competitive games as well. But the future's promising for that guy either way. Shout out to Adrian. I thought actually was quite good. I think you said it in your watch along. If it wasn't for Adrian, it should have been 1-1. So fair play, credit where credit's due. But I think also the young player who came on, I'm going to butcher his name. Was it Bacetic? I thought he was really good when he came on.
Flawless, Conroy.
I
Flawless.
think he smashed it there.
God,
I think you said it brilliantly there. Well done.
Yeah.
You've been practicing that shit because that was not first time.
Yeah, no.
I actually, Grizz, people are capable of doing it.
No.
First time. We don't all need to do 2 to 3 weeks of research.
No, I refuse to. I refuse to believe that.
Never mind. I'm going back on mute.
We cannot replace him. We cannot replace him.
Yeah, exactly. Conor practiced that shit.
Yeah, no. I thought he was very, very good. I would also say though, again, let's dial it back because Tyler Morton's done that in competitive games, and then that narrative's fell away as well. We've got a very, very easy habit of overrating stuff in this fan base. So good for him. I thought it was really impressive. And there's another, again, you talk about a comparison of players. Tyler Morton's a kind of similar type of style DM who can comfortable on the ball, play in tight spaces. So no, I was really impressed with him. And the obvious one is Darwin. I think you can say what you want about pre-season and, it is what it is, but scoring 4 goals following whatever, what happened, the compilations, the 3-minute compilations, the 3-minute fail compilations, I think was perfect for him. More importantly, just because his confidence. And I think, to me, I'm not worried. They probably score against Fulham now. I think that's lit the fire. And I've got to say, Grizz, I know we might talk about, we're not going to speak on this too much. The 2 goals he scored, his second and his third, is what I've been talking about for a long time, for saying the difference of having a 9 in your team, right? And listen, Jota's great. Jota's good at moving as well. But just for me, those 2 goals and that header chance he had was well saved. There is a difference in. And
you proper got excited. You must have definitely got excited. I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah, because see the goal at Trent lays him in. It looks like an easy finish, and you know what? I'm not obviously Salah could score that, and Mane has. I'm not disputing that, but it's just the third goal for me is the goal. That run, the tap in, for me, that's music to my ears for a striker. And listen, our forwards have done that before, but I just think he offers another dimension, and I think it was great for his confidence. So it's good.
I've got a super chat from Salim. Appreciate the super chat. He says, with all due respect, it isn't just about losing 2 games. It's about those 8 games we drew. Steve, me and you have spoken about sort of having more variety and being more unpredictable. Did you see any of that in action and sort of plans to be a bit more unpredictable, a bit more, what's the word? Attack-minded, or make sure we don't have 8 draws?
To some degree, yes. First half against Leipzig, it was the tried and tested midfield, the safe option with Fabinho, Thiago, and Keita, who are going to do what we know we're going to do. Second half was where we played with 2 guys left and right, 15 yards further up the pitch. Much more expansive, much more creative, giving us a lot of options potentially for trying to break down those stubborn teams, having a plan B, go back to the Champions League final, what he would have given for options off the bench in that game. So I think it was a deliberate ploy to play a safe and strong side in the first half and see how that went, and then play a more expansive second half. And again, it'll come into the conversation later when we talk about teams for the opening 2 games. But I think that was very deliberate with both of those games in mind. And it was nice to see that when Carvalho and Elliott were on the pitch, we scored an awful lot of goals and created an awful lot of chances because they wanted the ball in areas that hurt the opposition. Thiago played quite deep. Keita was okay. But if I'd asked you to name the team that started, Keita would probably be among the last names you would give me because he was unspectacular, but he was okay. He was played well without being brilliant. So we wouldn't necessarily, our mind wouldn't go there first port of call. But certainly in the second half when we played with these 2 guys pushed much further up the pitch, getting closer to Darwin Nunez, which as a number 9 probably helped him. We created an awful lot of opportunities, and I don't think that will be lost. As I say, I think that was a deliberate tactical ploy.
Jamie, who impressed you? Doesn't have to be the youngsters. It can be, or it can be anyone you want. I mean, who impressed you? Who do you think has made? Because we've all pretty much. I think I'd like to think, or I think we may have at least 8 certainties in all our heads, probably, possibly. Who do you think has made a decision? Who's made life difficult for Klopp and really pushed themselves either as a starting player or someone who we may not have thought may get in the squad on the substitutes bench on match day?
Well, I think that's there's a lot in that question, but the way that I'm going to go about it is, I think one of the things that I get the most frustrated about is sort of the context of the function of the players when you're rating them, right? Like Milner, Henderson will obviously not do the same things as Naby Keita and Thiago, for instance, right? And I think a lot of the chat of we need an extra midfielder comes from the function of a line breaker and a ball progressing midfielder, or someone who can throw something different in to pick a lock in a game. And I think some of the things that I saw from Fabio Carvalho were exactly that. He adds some spice. He adds something different. He adds that outside of the book little tap into the channel to find different players. He's creative. I really love his link-up play. And I think he's going to be a guy who, obviously, the fee that we paid for him wasn't a huge amount, but I think that's really because of the contract situation with which he had at Fulham and how we were gracious in our agreement and dealings with them to get this player no matter what it all costs. Because I think in certain scenarios we could have gotten him for free potentially, but I think this is a guy who, if he had come up to the Premier League with Fulham, played a full 38, people would be talking about 30 million pounds sterling for this guy at the end of this season. And we've gotten him for a sixth of that, less than a fifth of that. And he really impressed me just with his confidence on the ball, his way that he would take players on, receive the ball in space, always progressing, always going forward, finding the right moves, grafting when he had to. And so I think he's definitely going to be a guy who at the beginning of the season we'll see on the bench, but will definitely feature more and more throughout the season if things go well for him.
Evan, do you know what I enjoyed? Conroy spoke about the friendly. I think Conroy touched upon how they know each other. But if you add, was it Evan?
Yeah, it was Evan.
I knew it was Evan. That's why I've gone back to him. Evan, I know you touched upon sort of the friendly nature, and they know each other. If you add Curtis Jones to the mix, you've got 3 players there, pretty much under 21 or thereabouts, in terms of Curtis Jones. 3 players that if they were on the market now, under 21 talent that they have in teams like, let's just say, Leipzig, Monaco, and I don't know, pick a random team, but you get where I'm going with this. If we had these 3 players on the market and they were like sort of available for about 20-25 million, we'd say this up. We've picked well, we've selected well, we've bought well for the future. And those 3, and with them 3 working in tandem, because it seems like they're going to push each other, and I think Jurgen Klopp's done this brilliantly. I genuinely agree with Steve that he's done this very cleverly and brilliantly, and he's strategic, and he's put them in teams together, almost like a fight off, if you know what I mean, like a playoff. Like, go and show each other. Curtis, you go and show you've been here the longest and you're senior and you've had a few injuries. Harvey, the same. I started you ahead of Curtis last season and then you got injured. And Carvalho, you show them that you may be the youngest and you may be the newest, or Elliot might be the youngest, but you can ball better than them as well. I love the way he set these 3 up. I'm so excited about how they integrate and how they fight with each other in terms of, you know what I mean, fight.
And Klopp clearly has a lot of faith in all three, because you can imagine that if we were maybe overloaded with midfield options, finding a loan move for all three of those guys would be extremely easy. You would have Premier League clubs lining up out the door to loan any of those three guys. So the fact that they're all being kept on, for me, says one thing and one thing only: that Klopp thinks they're good enough to make a difference across all four competitions next season, and is perhaps, the reasoning behind not pursuing a midfielder that isn't named Aurelien Tchouameni or Jude Bellingham. Transformative signings only, to use the quote. I think it's a great environment, because there was a time not so long ago where I thought there wasn't enough age variety in and around the first team. We had a lot of guys sort of at 28, 29, and maybe only two players 25 or below that were really making a splash in the first team. And for a while, that was just Trent and Gomez, in my opinion. But now there seems to be a much more even dispersion. We've not only just lowered the average age with our new signings and our integration of academy players, but we've also just created a better balance, in my opinion. There's a clearly defined now next generation at Liverpool. You know what I mean? There's a, Trent, Gomez, Ibu, Elliot, Carvalho. You can add Bacetic in there now if you want to as well. Darwin, I guess Diaz is, still 25 and younger. So it went from our next generation was maybe 2 to 3 players strong a few years ago when we pictured what Liverpool in 2028 would look like. You know what I mean? But now it's much more clearly defined in my eyes. And so I'm also a huge fan of the progression. I'm a huge fan of how we're bringing these guys in. And one last thing I'll say on it, Grizz, I tossing the whole "do we need another midfielder" thing, putting that completely aside, I also think it's great that we're showing faith in these young guys to plug that hole, because for me, it sends a message to world football that, hey, if you are one of the best teenagers in world football, not only are we interested in you, there's a clear pathway for you. Because in my opinion, although it's great that we've reached the peak of football under Klopp, that's great. We're at the strongest we've ever been. That comes with a price, because you lose these transfer battles for the best teenagers in the world to the Leipzigs, to the Dortmunds. Domestically, Crystal Palace might offer a player, more playing time than we can. So the fact that we're making a statement, not just to ourselves, but to the broader footballing picture about pathways for teenagers in the first team, I think that says quite a lot to the rest of the world, and I think it'll help us out in future transfer sagas for the wonder kids of the world.
Not only the midfield, Conroy, I wanted to get your opinion on sort of the defense. Obviously, we've been unfortunate. We haven't had the chance to see Calvin Ramsey participate. That's the only downside of this tour, obviously, apart from the Ox and the Jota injury. But you touched upon the keeper situation. I could not believe how cool and composed this guy was. And it's just another line, another one in the line of great young keepers we're producing. Pedaluca, who has joined Macclesfield on loan, but training with us, and apparently he's been amazing in training.
Two man of the matches, I think.
Two men of the match for Macclesfield. This guy, I have no idea where he's come from, who he was, and everything. And the way he came on the pitch and was just so composed and cool. I know it's the in thing to make your goalkeepers be able to play it from the back, but we're producing some young keepers that we should really be proud of.
Well, absolutely. And you say that in fingers, but I actually think it's not going to go back. This is it. Like, I'm seeing some keepers now. I think the change in the last 5 years has been drastic. And you can say what you want, but it's going to be interesting what David De Gea does, because I'll tell you right now, you might improve, but for Eric Ten Hag team, you have to be pretty good on the ball. And I don't think you get away with that now. I think young keepers, you can't. You literally cannot be good. You have to be good with your feet. And whatever's happened, I always mention the Kelleher change. Like, obviously, I know Kelleher used to be outfield and stuff, but whatever happened with him after the Arsenal 5-5, and Emi Martinez as well can come into this, because both of them were hopeless in that game. Absolutely hopeless. So I might look into whatever our goalkeeper training since then, because if it's Kelleher, if it's I was going to pronounce that one, Evan, but I nearly got that one wrong. So the Macclesfield goalkeeper now, or Harvey Davis, whatever we're doing, it's working. And do you know what? See, with regard to keepers, if you're Liverpool's second keeper for a couple of years, you're competing with stuff. Look at Kelleher right now. He's going to be happy. We might have to look at that next summer. Summer after that, you might see that changing, because I think eventually he'll be want to progress, especially for the Republic of Ireland slot as well, with the guy who's at Portsmouth, who used to be at Man City, playing so well now, and I'm forgetting lots of names tonight. But I feel like
you peaked way too early with the pronouncing.
Bazuna. Yeah. So I think, like, with us, it's very important. I think actually most teams, it won't just be as you'll see, they have to do that now, because it's not even a trend thing. Literally, if you look at the stats as well, if you try to play out from the back, right, there's this kind of, I wouldn't say myth, but you can always play for second balls, but there's a reason people try to do that. And obviously you need the right players to do that, but it's going to start with keepers. I think in 10 years' time, you'll actually probably find most goalkeepers are at least very good, or at least reasonable with their feet to play outfield, or at least close to that. I'm not saying they're going to be a dynamic midfielder, but they can handle the ball in tight situations. I think that'll just continue. Bazunu, that's it. Sorry, forgot his name.
Okay, guys, can I just say real quick on Kelleher? Is anybody else like me surprised that there hasn't been a ton of interest in him? Well, publicized interest in him, because I thought teams would have been lining up to give him a first team opportunity. Maybe not, obviously not teams of our caliber, but a newly promoted Premier League side, a Dutch side, for example. You know what I mean?
This is exactly what I was going to come to Steve and ask him. Do you think? And I was going to obviously segue into this. Do you think there's a decision to be made on Kelleher very soon? Okay, maybe hopefully not this season, but next season. And if we see the emergence and the continued emergence of Harvey Davis and Petluka, who are both outstanding young backup keepers. Kelleher is going to be 24, lads. If someone could quickly maybe let us know if that's confirmed. 24 next year, and he's an international, and he's a wonderful keeper. Alisson isn't by no means even close to over the hill. Do you think there's a decision to be made, Steve? There, do you think?
I think,
and if there is, what do you do? If he comes to you and says,
yep,
"Talk to me, boss," like, what'd you do?
I think the decision is with him rather than the club. At the end of the day, you wouldn't keep a player that feels we're holding them back. If Klopp has always said, if someone knocks on the door and says, "I see my future somewhere else," then he'll embrace that and he'll help them do that. He's never wanted to keep anybody against their will. Second reserve, backup goalkeepers, however you want to call them, is arguably the hardest position to have in a football club. Goalkeepers is a very confidence-based position, and if you're not playing, you can't build your confidence. Adrian is a perfect example of a guy that his confidence was shot to pieces in games when we needed him to be safe and rigid and sound, and he just wasn't. So if we're not going to give these guys game time, and we've got these young lads, other goalkeepers in the club, it might be that Kelleher decides he needs to be a number one. I would be very surprised if at some point in the future, in the near future, he doesn't have that question, because if he didn't, I'd be looking at him thinking, where's the ambition? Because you have to have ambition. He's a professional footballer. He's 24 years old. He's just come off the back of playing more games for Liverpool than he's ever played and being quite a prominent figure in a couple of cup successes. So he'll be thinking about that now. And he's probably going to give it another 12 months and see what happens. The big problem is all of these goalkeepers are playing second fiddle to the best goalkeeper in the world. And that really doesn't bode well for you when you think you're going to get opportunities. We're not talking Southampton, where they'll probably rotate 3 goalkeepers across the season, and they'll play 10 games each until someone has a bad game, and then Fraser Foster comes in for his turn, because that's how it's been for years down there. But it's not that situation at Liverpool. I think 12 to 18 months time, Kelleher will be thinking about, what do I want to do? I'm an international goalkeeper, like you said. I need to be playing first team football, and I think we, the fans and the football club, would understand that, and I think we're expecting it.
Another person that we may have been worried, Jamie, would maybe start asking that question, or maybe two people I'm going to throw at you, is Gomez and Tsimikas. But of course, Gomez has agreed to extend and stay. Huge for me. Or are you a Gomez fan, for that matter? And Tsimikas as well. It looks like, we genuinely have options as backups in those positions. Obviously, we haven't seen Calvin Ramsey, so we hold fire on that one. But obviously, Gomez has shown he can cover that. In fact, forget Gomez. Young James Milner has been probably the standout performer in the preseason so far on that right. So Joe Gomez, Tsimikas, Konate, the backups to the backups, or are they backups? Just look so strong and deep and healthy. It's looking good, right? Even that area of the pitch.
I mean, with Joe Gomez, this is a guy who was part of that 1920 Liverpool Premier League winning side. He's an extremely experienced player, although he doesn't have as many games as he should under his belt through the injury record. But the thing with Joe Gomez is he's been at Liverpool for such a long time. And so through all of the troubling situations that he's had, he's always shown that desire to play for Liverpool. And so I think with playing under Klopp, playing with Virgil, and playing with Matip, and then seeing Konate come in, I don't think that necessarily is something that would phase him because of the longevity and connection that he has with the club. Because I can definitely see with Joe Gomez's age in the future, he will have an opportunity at Liverpool. I believe Virgil is 31 and Matip is up there as well. And so I think if we can see the development for the plan to be Konate and Joe Gomez, that Joe Gomez can definitely see that in 3-4 years time, this will be my position for the long term. Tsimikas is a different situation, because with him, it's been mentioned before on this show, he's an outstanding player. He's seemed right up for it this past season. He didn't really get in with a fair shot during the COVID season, so I don't begrudge him for not showing what he was capable of with his first year in Liverpool. But he's really going to push Andy Robertson to as far as he can go. And so I'm sure at the end of the season, Tsimikas will assess based on how much he's played, when he's played in the big games, and he'll have conversations with Klopp about, okay, Jurgen, who do you really favor? I want to see myself as the starting left back for Liverpool. Is that a possibility here? So that'll be his conversation. And just to touch on the Kelleher chat, right? I think two big things come into play with Caoimhin Kelleher. I think he's an outstanding talent. Jurgen Klopp thinks he's an outstanding talent. And this is a blessing and a curse of the depth, right? When you have outstanding depth, high-class quality players in depth, they'll surely be getting offers and people who want to take them and maybe give them a bigger role at a different club. But with Caoimhin Kelleher, I think it's two things. I think, number one, in his mind, he probably pays attention to how many games Alisson Becker plays per season. Alisson Becker drops the odd 5 to 10 games through random injuries. I mean, he missed out the other day only. And so I'm sure in Caoimhin Kelleher's mind, he knows, okay, I'll definitely get opportunities here, not only with the schedule and the amount of games, but also, okay, the number one here, he misses the odd game. There's an opportunity here. But then also, I definitely remember with Danny Ward, I think we sold him to Leicester for about £10 million. I think the problem will be for Caoimhin Kelleher is he's got to find someone who loves him at upwards of £20 million. I definitely think that the transfer for him is going to be upwards of £20 million. And so with that being a relatively steep fee for a second keeper, it puts him in a bind knowing it'll definitely have to be a conversation he'll have to have with Klopp way in advance, because there's no way I see Liverpool going into the season without Caoimhin Kelleher as our backup right now, because it's so late in the window. If that's something that changes over the next 12 months where he doesn't get opportunities, I'm sure it's going to be one of those things that's immediately sorted. Well, we'll bring someone in, or it will be apparent that this person is the heir to be number two, because I remember the situation with Adrian was that Kelleher had fallen off a bike. I believe it was in preseason, and that's why the dramatic late change in our transfer policy to bring in Adrian before he came in. And I believe it was the cup against Chelsea, and Adrian actually ended up getting a Premier League winners medal that year. So for those players, I think it's going to be a case-by-case basis.
Pixelate Pigeon asks, will Kelleher be starting the cup games? I absolutely believe he will. I think that would be one of the guarantees or the chats they've had. Sorry, Conor, he was going to say something.
Yeah, no, just a quick one on that. I think we do need to address the points. I've said this for a couple of weeks as well, but 5 subs is going to play a part. If I'm Calvin Ramsey, I'd say Shimikas is tighter, because I think you'll maybe see more games shared. Well, we'll see how they get on, because people mentioned, Grizz, you mentioned Mohamed Salah getting a rest. Well, Andy Robertson's literally not had a rest for about a year as well. So be interesting to see how he starts the season. But regarding the 5 subs, I think this does change it. I feel like if it's 65 minutes and you're 2-0 up or 3-0 up, Trent's coming off straight away. I don't care if it's the stadium's full, you'll take him off, because when your playmaker is that vital and the game's finished, he'll take him off. If 3-0 at Anfield, he's coming off.
It'll be the 5 sub rule. It will be an absolute nightmare for FPL players up and down the world.
No, well, and I
100%.
think fullbacks, and you probably see the same as well. You probably see Gomez centre backs as well. That'll get changed. So I actually think I get what you're all saying, but I think there'll actually probably be more games or more appearances on the park for maybe the last 30 minutes because of that. The other thing is the Kelleher. It's a good point Jamie said as well. Where could he go? I think the way football has been, as I mentioned earlier, this is probably. Someone will probably find a season when there's been more. But I'd say you've got so many teams now who, even the promoted teams, are playing out for the back and will look at a keeper who can save and be that quality. I'm surprised Bournemouth didn't actually try and test the water. I know they've got Travers, he's a good keeper. I thought they would have went for someone like that because the way they want to play out from the back, a Kelleher. You look at, it's not going to be Newcastle, obviously, but even Newcastle going for Pope. I think Pope's a brilliant shot. I think he's one of the best, but I wouldn't say he's amazing with his feet. And the way a team like Eddie Howe wants to play, I'm not saying he would have went for Kelleher, obviously, because it's Saudi backed, but you've got Brighton, you've got a few down here as well. You've got quite a lot of teams now who want to play that way. So I don't think he'll be short for offers if he does put his put it out there, Jamie. But as I say, it's going to be interesting. But I do think, honestly, I feel like the 5 subs is going to change it. I think honestly, there'll be a game where we're winning at 3-0 at half time. He'll take Trent off at half time and watch the meltdown of FPL. Grizz, that would be horrendous.
I'll probably be leading the meltdown. But Evan, it looks all rosy, it looks all good so far. Of course, mad disappointment. I'm very disappointed with the Diogo Jota injury, because I genuinely thought, even though Nunez is the record signing and everything, 4 goals, and I don't really want to get into the childish section of that chat in terms of people and making compilations of him after training sessions, but we've gone past that and beyond that. But I just genuinely thought Bobby or Jota would have been starting off against Fulham. That was just my opinion. So Jota's out. I'm gonna ask you to pretty much pick your team, how you think we're gonna set up for Fulham. I'm gonna bypass the Charity Shield, because I know you don't like domestic trophies, so God knows what the fuck you think about Charity Shield. So I'm not even gonna dare ask you what you think about the Charity Shield. So I'm gonna skip straight to the business end of the league campaign, and Fulham away. Pick your team, brother.
Wow. Okay. Alisson, Trent, Van Dijk, Konate, Robertson, Fabinho, Thiago, Henderson, Diaz, Darwin, Salah is what I think the team will be. There's going to be so many games the next season. I don't think we need to worry about getting people game time quickly because, players will get injured. Opportunities will present themselves. 5 substitutions now. Was that literally what I just said?
Yep.
Wow. Shout out to Eunice. Telepathic minds. We're just, connecting so far across the globe. Football, the universal language. Love it. Yeah, so I like my team. And listen, we've gotten to the point where I feel like what's your predicted starting 11 for Liverpool? I haven't seen one in like the last 2 years, barring, the cursed season, that's made me be like, ew, like what's that? Used to happen all the time because we were really shit, and we had a lot of shit players. And I'd be like, ugh, Alberto Moreno, ugh. But like now it's just like, oh, you want Keita instead of Henderson? Oh, whatever.
That was exciting, though, Evan. With Marino, it was exciting because he was a madman. Like, he was actually mad. Like, he would do stuff that genuinely was crazy. Like, do you not remember against Norwich when he gave away a penalty, but it didn't get given, and then 2 seconds later, he challenged them again?
I just want to let everybody know that Grizz has a no eating rule on the REDFELLAS. That apparently only applies to all of us. Instead of him. See, I finished my meal before. I was even muting myself, but it's okay. Different rules for different people. We'll move on. You don't have to respond to that, Grizz. I'll just keep talking. Alberto Moreno was a bit of a madman, but the starting 11s now, we're just so deep that it just really doesn't matter. Like, oh, you think Jota should play next weekend instead of Diaz? Cool. I could really give a fuck less. And I encourage more people in the chat to invoke a certain attitude because you guys have been arguing about teenagers literally the entire show. So just be grateful that we have such amazing young talent at the team instead of debating which 19-year-old has better ball control or whatever.
Conroy, we've got a super chat to address. What would you pay for Dirk Kuyt right now?
Ooh.
Bit of a random one, but the game's
I like that. I've got a lot of time for that. That's like Evan's draft. Brilliant and random. Love it.
Thanks.
I would say people forget Dirk Kuyt was like a big goal scorer for Feyenoord when we signed him. Like he kind of turned into that right winger, but he was quite a prolific goal scorer. So I would kind of relate that to whatever you're paying for an Ajax striker right now. So how much did Dortmund pay for Haaland? Haller?
Anybody know how much Haller was?
It was about 30-40 million.
Yeah,
I'd say about that because I'm not talking about for Liverpool. I'm saying for when we signed him. That's what it was. If you talk about at his Liverpool time, yeah, probably a bit lower, maybe 25, 30, maybe 30 mil. But listen, Dirk Kuyt, people forget effectiveness is key in this game, and Dirk Kuyt was that, playing a lot of variety of positions, different systems. A lot of time for Dirk. A lot of time.
Fair enough. And just going on to sort of your prediction for the team lineup, is there anything that you would do differently? Has anyone really made your mind up, or are you still sitting on the fence in a couple of things?
No.
Do we think Jurgen Klopp knows his starting lineup right now, guys? And I'll come to you, Steve, and Jamie as well. If you guys, okay, we've got 2 disagreements already. Evan's saying no, and Steve saying yes. So we'll get to that. Jamie, Conroy.
I think what I think he'll do is I'm a bit torn. I think if it was not Fulham, and it's not, I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just talking about the amount we'll have the ball against Fulham. Most teams will have most of the ball, but I think against Fulham, I can't see them. I could be wrong. I think it's a game you can play Elliott in, and I think he loves Elliott, and I think especially with the Salah, Trent, Elliott dynamic at the start of the season, that we did get a bit, like, it was great, but it was a very small sample size, and you keep reminding people of that. But yeah, it wasn't like they'd done half a season together, but they still look very promising. So I do get why Evan said Henderson, especially because he came on the other day. I think that helped as well because he's making the forward runs and breaking the lines. But I wouldn't be surprised if Elliott started in the midfield for that game. So I'm going to say that. So for me, I would just say the same as Evan. Probably agree with Konate as well. I would just say Elliott. And I actually think Bobby Firmino will start. I think with the 5 subs, I think he's not going to... You've seen him do this in the past. Even Fabinho, he doesn't always buy the big signing and throw them right in. So I think he starts Bobby Firmino in the 9 and then maybe brings Nunez on. And it's probably... Could be incorrect, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if he'd done that.
Can we all, people in the chat, in case the guys themselves don't remember, can we all remember who said what? And then whoever gets the team prediction right, I'll have some form of prize for them. Steve, do you think you was nodding and thinking you think Klopp will know his starting lineup already? Interesting. Elaborate.
I've been saying for weeks, I think we see the Harvey Elliott experiment tried again this season. I think he comes in on day one. This is a game where we can make a statement in terms of going to Fulham and get a decent win. Because it will be tough for them this season. I think they're probably one of the favourites to go straight back where they came from. I think the betting world in football would suggest that would be the case as well. So I think he knows his team. And I think I'm inclined to agree with some of the points Conroy's just made. I think Evans got his back four spot on. I think it will be Thiago and Fabinho. I think it'll be Elliott. And I do think Bobby Firmino starts the game purely because let's think about how Manchester City introduced Phil Foden into their ranks. 2 or 3 and up and bring him on and he gets the 4th or 3rd goal. Is there a case to say you can do that with Darwin? Because there's nothing actually wrong with Bobby Firmino. It works. And we'll need to be... They'll be up for it because it's kind of like the Brentford game when we played Brentford. It's going to be arguably the biggest game of their season.
I hate playing promoted teams away from home.
Yeah.
I hate
it dangerous.
There's a relatively the unknown against Brentford. I don't think it is with Fulham, and I'm usually the most cautious with these ones. But I just think we've always had a great record at Fulham in general. I don't think they've had massive changes. They're probably going to still play similar with Mitrovic. Listen, I would admit when I'm wrong, but I think with this one, you can do that. I think it's like Norwich last season. I think it falls in the same bracket. It's very similar. But listen, we'll see. I think Brentford's different. I think you've never played there before. You got Thomas Frank who adapt to what you do. I think would be fine. But
I hear you. I also hear Grizz when I say that newly promoted sides are dangerous because what will they do? They'll go out and enjoy themselves because they don't get relegated after one game. They'll go out and show off what they can do to their fans. The most important thing for Fulham to be when we play them is relaxed, and they will be because it's not a season-defining game. We talk about free hits. We talk about games where you can go and be a little bit expansive, a little bit cheeky, and try and do things. And I think Fulham will try and play to entertain their fans, to try and say, look, we're back in the Premier League and we'll have a go. It doesn't matter if they lose because it's not going to define their season.
Jamie, you've heard the 3 more experienced campaigners of the REDFELLAS give their predictions on the lineup. This is your debut on the REDFELLAS, so this could make or break you if you get this right, my friend. How's that for pressure?
No pressure then.
I made you. I let you go last so you can listen to the more experienced guys speak about how they think Klopp will approach this. Give us your starting lineup.
Well, just with that condensed 42% of the season getting done between August 6th and the middle of November, I think we're going to try and see the best Liverpool lineup as much as we possibly can in this time period, and then divvy it out with slight changes. And so obviously I think the Community Shield, and then I believe we play a friendly the day after. There will be a lot to read into that, but I'm pretty standard with the rest of the gentlemen here. I'm going to go with Bobby up front, Luis Diaz, Mo Salah, Hendo, Thiago, Fabinho, and then the normal back 4 as of now, which is VVD, Konate, Trent, Robbo, Allison, obviously. My question that I want to leave you guys with, because I've thought about this for a little while, and it's different now with Jota injured, but I wonder what is the best fail-safe for Liverpool in terms of who starts in the center up top and what 2 do we leave on the bench to give us the best chance to win. Because I feel like the obvious way to go about it would be, if a team is playing a high line, you'd insert Darwin Nunez there and then have Bobby and Jota on the bench. But in a situation where you're playing a team that's tight and you have to break them down, I think it obviously makes sense to have someone like Firmino there who can pick a lock as such, because I want to see how well Darwin Nunez will do in the air and in tight situations, because if it becomes apparent and evident that this guy is just a flick machine or something with his head, I could also see great value in having him on the bench for the last 10 minutes of games with Robertson and Trent serving in world-class service. And if you've got a man there who can use his height, get up, get something on the ball, that's a dynamic that I feel like we've only seen with Jota, but not in the same sense of, I can't necessarily remember last 10 minutes of games and he's a guy who has a physical advantage in the air, and that's how we're going about our strategy. So that's one of the things that I think about, that I'm really excited to see how it plays out when Jota's back fit and we have those three options available.
I think that's a very good point, Jamie. I've been saying that for about 2.5 years, so I think that's a very good point. It's called throwing a kitchen sink and saving a game when you've played terrible. That's what it's called. And I think Nunez does that, mate. I think you have a very good point. I think, though, as I say, mate, it's hard, though, because you could say that and then Jota's got an issue, Nunez got an issue, Firmino's off form. You know, there's loads of circumstances before every game. We literally talk about it in every pre-match. I think, like, ideally, you don't get many teams who play a high line against us. Let's cut, well, I was going to swear there, but let's just cut the rubbish. Most of the teams play a low block. We should know that. You can maybe argue why the hell we're playing Leipzig in a friendly, because that doesn't do much for that. That's a fair point. But I think, like, Firmino's your guy for that. But then I think as well, Nunez, the reason we paid the money for Nunez is because he can add to that as well. He's not just a lump. So I'll be honest, I'm not going to sit in the fence. I think either one. But I think he'll just play Firmino. If Firmino was as good as he used to be, he would play him because he loves him. But let's be honest, his form's been up and down. So I think the most consistent out of those three you're going to get is you're probably going to play Darwin when he's fully integrated, because you know he's probably going to be the most consistent. And obviously with Jota, we don't know about the injury problems now. But even Jota, when he scored a lot of goals, there was definitely a problem with his form last season as well. So it's a hard one. I'd say probably the best chance going forward, it'll probably be Nunez will start most of the games. And then you'll just have Salah and Diaz next to him, just on the basis of, I think, Jota and Firmino just their form's not been that consistent as of late. But as I say, any game can be different.
Evan, two best impact subs out of the 5 Liverpool. Diaz and Salah are not going to be subs, so they're starters. You've got one to pick out of the other. No, you've got one to pick and 2 impact subs. Who, in your opinion, are the best impact subs out of those 3? Because that's a quiet question from the debutant.
Best impact subs are one of them is Firmino, because the profile is so rare. Tactical flexibility, can drop deeper if you need him to. And I'm gonna say Jota is the other good impact sub. And I say that strictly because I think Darwin's going to start alongside Salah and Diaz against Fulham.
Steve, if you had 2 impact subs and you choose one, who are the best 2 impact subs out of those 3 that are not going to be starting? We're assuming Diaz and Salah start most games. Impact subs. See, I don't think Bobby's a very good impact sub. Sorry to give my opinion. I know no one asked me, but I just.
What's your opinion, Grizz?
No. We'd go to Steve first. I don't like Bobby as a sub. Impact sub. I don't know.
Bar the Arsenal away game was good when he came on against them, and the Norwich game at the first game of the season. But I know what you mean.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I think Bobby's been better coming off the bench for 12 months than starting games. There's 2 or 3 games last season where he absolutely made a difference, and I think Diogo Jota being the other one. It's too early to say how big an impact Darwin Nunez is off the bench, because we don't know if he can come into a Premier League game, pick up the pace of it, and work with the team in that regard. So that's a wait and see. But I do think at some point, not too far into the season, he will be the go-to man through the middle. I'm just not sure I see it on day one. So I would say Bobby and Jota would be your impact subs for different reasons. When you need a goal, you've got Jota's ability to take up really strong positions, And when you need something a bit different, when you're giving the ball away a bit cheaply and you need someone to hold it and bring other players into the game, then that's where you bring Bobby in.
Now, I actually like your thinking about I think you've made my mind up, especially in terms of Nunez being new to the league, picking up the pace of the game would be a bit more difficult. Whereas Jota and Bobby know the league, know the pace, probably know the players they're playing against, weaknesses, etc., etc. So I think
We
that
could play all three when we're chasing it. Just go 5-5, have Salah and
yeah.
Diaz in the
Well,
wings, and then Bobby behind.
no one's mentioned Carvalho as well, because he'd be a sub as well. He's going to be a fantastic little impact sub, I believe. But look, Jurgen Klopp's got choices, selection headaches, options, brilliant options, for it to be potentially a wonderful season. And Evan, potentially a season, we'd love to have a season that we play every single game in every single competition, and obviously with a couple of different results. Jurgen Klopp done an interview, Conway, was it? I don't know if we can get the article or up on screen, and it's caused a bit of an uproar on the Twitterverse, as it does. Will you be able to get it? Do I have to delete my one? Can we see this? Can you see it, Evan?
Mm-hmm. That should be up now, guys.
Yeah, so look, I didn't think much of it, but I woke up to hell on Twitter, man, saying, "Oh, Jurgen Klopp is what was the best one I heard? Loser? That was the best one. Weak mentality, loser mentality. I beg your pardon, not loser. Loser mentality, weak mentality, fragile. All of these kind of things was the underdog. There you go. Selection has reminded me the underdog tag, basically. What's your thoughts on Jurgen Klopp using this underdog tag? Because obviously he used it at Mainz. Obviously he used it at Dortmund when he was up against Bayern Munich. And now certain sections of the Liverpool fan base, we won't talk about the opposition fan base because that's their job. That's their job to rile us up and do what they got to say and do what they got to do. But section of the Liverpool fan base are questioning Jurgen Klopp and his underdog mentality always. What's your thoughts on all of it?
Sounds like a slow news day. Is my initial reaction to the fact that people are not just the Mirror, because they obviously have a business to run, but the fact that even people on the internet have made this a discussion, to me just is indicative of a slow news day generally, in the Liverpool universe and in the wider footballing picture. The whole Klopp is the perpetual underdog, or likes to use that tag, or thinks that's his brand. I mean, you look across his career, he's spent a lot of time as an underdog, as a player, spending a lot of his time in Germany's second division, certainly underdog as a manager in Germany at both Mainz and Dortmund. And I think in terms of where he's built this Liverpool team to, in terms of quality of player, no, Liverpool are no longer underdogs. Definitely not. Player for player, I think we're as good as anybody in the world and have been for a few years now. It's just, I think, more in terms of he's done it with X amount of resources, while other clubs have done it with, more resources than that, So that's really the only underdog story at work here. It's purely financial, not much of an underdog type situation on the pitch. So that for me is pretty plain. That's, I can figure that out in my head in about 20 seconds. So the fact that people have spent their precious weekends talking about it on Twitter, or hurling insults at each other over it on Twitter, I think is, again, indicative of a slow news day.
Conrad, any thoughts on Jurgen Klopp always throwing this line out, and some people suggesting, even suggesting he's given up on the title before it started by saying, Man City are favourites, or praising them, I guess.
Yeah, you see, the thing for me, Grizz, I know we mentioned this slightly in the past. I feel that with Klopp as well, he's very much about what happens in that dressing room stays in that dressing room. I think you've seen that when there's been rejections of potential documentaries in the past, or even at times that we get to see some of the behind the scenes, but not a lot, if you know what I mean. You get enough, but there's not any more than required. And I feel like sometimes you say stuff like this because what we hear and what the media hears and what the world hears is not necessarily what he's saying to that dressing room. And I feel like if you look at the previous years as well, I've got another point I want to add about that as well. But if you look at the previous years, you look at what we've done when we've lost the Champions League final, that squad has got a mentality to go right again. Now, I think they should be feeling the pain. I think maybe we're forgetting the pain because of that parade. But at the end of the day, we lost a final that we should not have lost. And to be honest, it's our fault we lost it. That shouldn't have happened. So I believe that dressing room is going to be absolutely gearing to get that Champions League again, and that is going to be on every player's mind when they start that season. And I have got complete confidence that that's the way of it. And I think it's a mentality, and he's created that. And I just feel like when you hear stuff like this, if anything, the reaction is sometimes I feel that's what he wants, because he keeps what he says to his players between him and the players and the staff. So I feel that's why he does it, and that's why I do find it quite humorous when he says, we're competing with the top four. Because I mean, technically we are, but we're obviously want to compete for a title, and I believe in his head that is what the players in their minds will be from day one, is to compete in all fronts, especially for the title in the Champions League. Just additionally as well, all managers have got quirks. I've said this before, and you mentioned the underdog thing. And I feel like, to be fair to Jurgen Klopp, he kind of backs it, as Evan said, with the jobs he takes. Like, he doesn't take the easy ride jobs. And it's not a comparison here. He just doesn't know. If you look at Dortmund, you look at Mainz, when he's done that, I think the way he is to get players to really go to the levels they get to, and that's why a lot of players seem to overperform is the wrong word, but he seems to take a good player and make them a great player. I don't think that's a coincidence that it's the type of atmosphere that he creates and culture in his club. And we spoke about this all season, guys. You know, like Ev, Steve, I know Jamie, you've always listened in. We speak about that all the time. And I feel like that's one of his things, is to make it this kind of underdog theme. Now, you might say, oh, he should think like this, but that's the way his management is, and that's the way it's been for a long time. And I'll tell you what, he's been bloody successful. I mean, he's done a lot for Dortmund, Mainz, and Liverpool. And I would just say, in a comparison to quirks, like, you see it all the time. It's not just a Klopp thing. You talk about, like, when Mourinho came in, the siege mentality thing. I've never seen anything like that. He comes in against a juggernaut in Manchester United, and people forget Mourinho's first game was against Manchester United, and he beat them 1-0 with eight new players in a team. So, like, you've seen it with him, us against them mentality. You've seen several other managers as well. You know, you've got the kind of the eliteness of the ruthlessness of, like, under Ferguson as well. So I think all managers have different types of quirks. There's numerous other examples. So the underdog one he's done in the past, you know what, it doesn't faze me because I've seen how successful we've been. So whatever he is doing, there's something right. And that doesn't mean you can't criticise it. I'm not saying that. But I just think when it comes to him and the way he is with those players, I've got full confidence that they'll go into that first game. Maybe not the Charity Shield, because I know Evan's not going to change his Twitter handle to Charity Shield Evan. I can assure you of that. But at the
What's
start,
he got these days? What's he got these days? He's
I
got
don't know,
something
some
stupid.
employer or something. I don't know.
Something what? Sorry, Grizz, I didn't catch that.
I don't know. It depends where it is. Then
It's
I might attend
preseason.
the other.
It's Evan preseason enjoyer.
Oh, that's a
Okay?
good one. That's a good one.
It's very light. It's very fun. It's in season, and it's definitely not stupid, Grizz. So you hurt my feelings there.
This one's fine. I did see a stupid one though.
But
Okay, which one? Okay, it's not.
you can go say, but overall, I feel like from the get go, those players are going to be up for it, and to actually make up for the lost final last year, and obviously, and on top of that, go for the league. Because as much as, like, Jamie's point earlier, it's not you, Jamie Phillips, is fair point about the draws, but come on, 92 points, guys. We have to have a bit of realism here. 92 points, and the team at 193. We had 8 draws, they had 6. It's fine margins. I could just say, oh, if we beat Man City, we could have won the league at the Etihad, and it would have been that simple. But football doesn't work like that. But I'm sure as soon as that ball kicks off, that is the mindset they'll have. I've never been so confident about it because we've seen it before. We lost the Champions League final. We won it the next season. We just lost the Premier League. We won it the next season. These guys, this squad, they're special, and I've got full confidence.
Steve, did you see the article or the comment?
Yeah.
And HM says, Grizz, the one thing I didn't like about Klopp's comments was when he said top 4 is the aim. Then if we can get the title, great. Paraphrasing, but roughly that is what he kind of said. And then Amit says, give it a week and Pep will say the same about us. He loves giving us compliments to amplify how good his team, I think he probably means how good his team are when they win it or whatever, something along those lines. Steve, what did you think of the uproar and the drama around it, the fury? Like, in terms of Klopp needs to be thinking like the big dog that we are. Maybe that's, I'll tell you what it is. Some people are suggesting that it's the 1% even that may be the reason why we don't get over the line, because he doesn't think like the absolute top dog that we should be. Is that a fair criticism?
I think Conroy's quite right that what he says to the press isn't what he says behind closed doors. Look, if I said to you now, Grizz, who's going to win the league, you would say to me, we probably, anybody that finishes above Manchester City will probably win the league. So that tells you Manchester City, in lots of people's eyes, are the favourites to win the league.
Well, Steve, you're forgetting about Arsenal, mate. Arsenal.
Let's not do this, Conroy. Let's not do this. There's a time and a place, son, in this, isn't it? Right? Thanks for that curveball. So in lots of people's eyes, if you finish above Manchester City, you win the title. So by proxy, that probably makes Manchester City the footballing world's favourites to win the league. So to say we're not favourites to win the league doesn't say we're underdogs, but it says we're not favourites to win the league. And
literally that
is we're not. And history shows that Liverpool and Manchester United in their real halcyon days when they won trophies year in and year out, we're the only team that can stop Manchester City becoming the third team to go through that phase in their history where they would just sweep up everything. Domestically anyway, maybe not sort of European-wise, because they seem to struggle with that, as we well know. So Conroy's right. He won't be saying to the players, it's all right to finish second, because it isn't. But it isn't a disgrace to finish second to a side that's as good as Manchester City are. I think we all agree with that statement. We're not favourites to win the Premier League next year. There's changes for both sides coming with the changes in personnel, particularly up top. I posted the thing earlier today for a bit of fun to show you all of the touches that Erling Haaland cocked up in his game against his debut for Manchester City. So that can happen to anybody at any time. We're not favourites to win the Premier League. Let's not be under the illusion of anything other than if you finish above City, you will most likely win the title. So it's not wrong to accept that. And Conroy's right. He will not be saying that to the players. More importantly, he won't need to make that clarification to the players because they are winners and they will want to go and right the wrongs of last season. Like Conroy says, they lose a Champions League final. He's singing in the bar at 4 o'clock in the morning. He uses that adversity to get an extra 10% out of his players. We go to 97 points and win the league, lose the league by a point. He uses that adversity to find an extra 10% the following season. That is what that man is without doubt the best of in the world, which is using adversity to find extra effort, extra intensity from his players. I expect to see that this season. But Manchester City is still going to be the standard bearer and the team that the hump we need to get over to win the title. Let's not be confused about that. That's the big obstacle that stands in our way above all else. Mm-hmm. So for Klopp to come out and say it and then go and win the league, there's a little bit of undersell and over-deliver, which Amit's point before about amplifying how good your opponents are to make your team look good. It's a really, really valid point that Pep Guardiola is a world-class at saying how good his opponents are. So when he gets it right, he was the first person to acknowledge how good Liverpool are. But guess what? He also beat them. So that puts him on a different level. So it's all PR, it's all mind games. But the reality is the players, the coaching staff and Jurgen Klopp go into this with one thing in mind, which is to win. The rest of the footballing world sees us as second favourites to Manchester City. So there's no drama here. Not for me.
There's I think, I'm not going to share my opinion because it's all about you guys. Jamie, but even during the Fergie era, when there wasn't a team that he could class as favourites. What he would do, Fergie would turn his team against the media instead. There's always someone
The
out
refs,
to get
the
them,
refs,
the
the media,
refs or something.
always
This is
something,
not a new philosophy from Jurgen Klopp. This is not something that Liverpool fans should really take offense to, that he's the only manager that does this. Do you know, the likes of Carlo Ancelotti have lavished praise on us before the final, you know, spoke about how unique we are, whatever. Even Pep has spoken about how we're the hardest team he's ever played. You know, this is what managers do. Which manager have you ever heard come out and say, yeah, we're winning this, we're winning the quadruple? They just, the old boring cliches come out as soon as they are asked these kind of questions, like we take one game at a time, blah blah blah, all this kind of shit. Where's the drama at, man?
Grizz.
Are you
I mean,
asking me?
it's as
Oh, sorry.
it's as Evan said. You know, it was a slow news day, and if you watch the interview, right, there was one point in the interview where the interviewer asked about signings, and then Klopp went on to say, "Well, unless someone gets injured or someone is leaving, then we won't be moving anyone on or bringing anyone in." And then the interviewer, I forget if it was before this or after this, asked Klopp, so is anyone in negotiations for any of your players? And Klopp immediately got serious and said to the interviewer, have I ever talked about that with you before? As in, any important information that is really going on with the club or the squad, you're not going to get it from him in an interview like that. And so you can either take it as one of two ways. You can either analyze the rest of what he says in the interview and think, okay, there's something here, or you can see when it really matters in the press conference, he's not going to really give you jack. But for the context of one of the comments that someone made about qualifying for top four, the context is the interviewer said, with signings and transfers, everyone is getting closer to where you are. And then Klopp goes on by saying, main target for all of us is to qualify for the Champions League. And he sort of checks himself a little bit, continuing the answer to go on to say, it's really difficult enough already. When you qualify 4 or 5 years in a row, people don't appreciate it. Sort of giving praise to us, but then also saying, because the interviewer mentioned Arsenal and Tottenham, you know, we've qualified for the Champions League for the last 5 years. You can get close to us, and I'm sure they will. Other teams will make good moves, but, you know, you have to qualify for the Champions League for it to really mean something. And in terms of the competition and the underdog role, I think it's just as simple as, okay, we have our culture, we have our identity, we are grafters. We know that one of the ways that we can do what we need to do in terms of winning titles and getting there to the end is, number one, working harder than other teams in a way that's more advantageous, the marginal gains as well. But the way I sort of see City and Liverpool, or maybe a way that Klopp could see City and Liverpool, is it really hit me, right? I was watching the Michael Schumacher documentary on Netflix, and I'm not into Formula One, but this one part really stuck out to me, and it was Schumacher when he went to Ferrari and this guy Hakkinen with the McLaren Mercedes outfit. And so I see it as City is McLaren Mercedes with Hakkinen, and where Ferrari was Schumacher, where, okay, I must have to get this out of the way for context. Ferrari was failing drastically at that time, and we are clearly not failing drastically. But basically, the Ferrari car that Schumacher was driving was not equipped to the same degree as McLaren Mercedes. And the caveat was, if McLaren Mercedes and Hakkinen got in front, they had enough speed in that car to just juice away. Where Schumacher and Ferrari's tactic was, Schumacher knew he was good enough to stay pace for pace with McLaren and Mercedes and Hakkinen. And so I see that with City, where for us, we know if City get a 6-point lead, They have turned 6-point leads into 12-point leads faster than any Premier League team I have ever seen in my life. And that will go back to, let's say, 2007, when I really got into watching the Premier League. And so when Klopp says that we are the underdogs, that outfit, that City team, I've never seen another team do what they can do, where they can end a title race in 5 games and go from 6 to a 12-point lead. And so, yeah, we are an underdog to that, but we do have the capabilities, like Schumacher did with Ferrari, where if we stay with them, we can eventually pip them if we get there at the end.
Steve, you wanted to come in there, I think.
Yeah, just play devil's advocate momentarily. We gave them a 14-point lead, even with games in hand, and we turned it round, drew them back in. So whilst they turned a 6-point lead into a 12-point lead, we turned a 14-point lead into a 0-point lead. So I don't think that's the issue. I don't think there's a psychological issue with it with our club at all. If anything, that should be what spurs them on next season to go and do it again, because they're not infallible. But the rest of the footballing world out there has got Manchester City on a pedestal and thinks that they're the favourites. And what Jurgen Klopp is essentially saying, fine, have that, let them be the favourites. We're happy not to be the favourites. Everything that guy says gets totally misconstrued and taken out of context by Twitterverse and the weapons that exist in there that have a problem with everything that comes out of the football club. So it's an interesting one. It's a different set of challenges this year with the change in players. I don't think for 1 second we are in awe of Manchester City at all. And we turned their 14-point lead. We were ahead of them at one stage. So it's a 15-point swing. I could remember talking to my friends and saying, just keep winning the games, keep winning the games, keep hold of the coattails, keep hold of the coattails. If they slip, we're there to take advantage. They've sold a player in Raheem Sterling that was pivotal to them winning titles. I don't know how they're going to solve that problem.
But see on that, Steve, as well, like, it's just to add to you and Jamie's points, I think like the underdog point you could say as well, though, is like, if you look at Man City, arguably, I think they probably will be. I'm not saying they've not dominated, but if you look at leagues, they won 4 out of the last 5, right? And potentially the 100-point Centurion team probably weren't. I'd say I'd put them right up there, to be honest, one of the best teams in the Premier League ever. So if you're looking at it that way, you could see that if you're our team, Klopp so much. I mentioned the culture, but also the energy in the stadium and the fans to make it. And I think a lot of his quirk and his kind of technique with that, would to create that culture, everyone has to back in. And I think with the fan base and the players, that's how he kind of has that type of attitude. You can be like, look at these guys. Everyone thinks they're I was going to say Harlem Globetrotters. That's a bad example. But say, like, let's give a dominating team like the Chicago Bulls, Jordan, Rodman. I'm getting right into basketball now recently, Evan. It's getting a bit ridiculous. But like that, Steve Kerr, even on 8 rings, 9 rings, but just that team, like the absolute, in his head, I think he tells his players, but I know you're better. But I know you're just as good. I know you can do it. And I think that's what he creates. And it also, we mentioned Mourinho earlier and stuff, like other managers having kind of creating the fan base, like it's us against them. I think that kind of helps the whole culture of the club, to be like, we're going to defeat this obstacle, even though, like, obviously our team's outstanding and it's the best team I've ever seen as Liverpool. But you get what I'm saying. I think he can use that to help make the players stay at such a high level for such a period of time.
Very quickly, Evan, next week, after all this, we play Man City in a Charity Shield, or call it whatever you want. Is there anything psychological behind a win or a loss? After all that, what do you think? How are you feeling about that?
Well, yeah, just because in recent years we've played them in the Charity Shield and we both went full strength or something very, very close to it. It's a game that's in close proximity to the start of the season. Although the trophy quite literally doesn't count because it's classified as a friendly by the EFL. How we play matters, and I think this will be very interesting, especially if it's a Haaland Nunez showdown. Not just because it'll be like, oh, who's the better player? We're going to find out today. That's obviously not going to be decided on the day of the game, but it'll sort of answer a question in our heads, both as Liverpool fans and both fans of City. how are we going to incorporate a traditional number 9 into this team? Because both of us have been playing without one for quite a while. And when we did have number 9s, they were never quite fully fancied. For example, Aguero under Pep. So yes, I think it'll be fascinating tactically. It'll set the tone for the inevitable battle for the title. And just quickly on the title race, are we favorites? Are they favorites? I think it's absolutely too marginal to call, considering that we both took the Premier League season literally to the final minutes of it last season, and on top of that, we've kind of had similar transfer windows. They lost a seasoned Premier League proven attacker. We lost a seasoned Premier League proven attacker, and we've both taken a gamble and recruited a young traditional striker from outside the Premier League. So the similarities are there, and I'm really looking forward to the game. It's going to be, like I said, fascinating tactically. I think if you're a neutral, I'd imagine that if you're a neutral watching Liverpool versus City, it's got to be your favorite game as a football fan. Just like El Clasico was mine 10 or 11 years ago.
100%. I think it's going to be fascinating as well. The last time we played him in the Charity Shield when we lost on penalties, guys, do you remember?
Yeah.
And we performed really well in that second half. And I remember
Kyle Walker cleared it off the line, didn't he, Chris?
I remember making my debut for 90 minutes, and I was on the set in the studio, and we were speaking about the show. We were speaking about the game, and they said, "Chris, what do you think about the title? You know, you lost on penalties to Man City. Do you think it will be a psychological blow?" I said, "No, I couldn't. I'm so confident after that." And they said, "What the hell?" And they all laughed to a man. So shout out all those guys. I remembered all my name, and I've got the clip, and I played it because what happened, that was the first time I spoke about the mentality of this Liverpool team. And do you remember, guys, that was the year when the mentality giants came out, you know, and I said it, and they go, and I said, they may have lifted the trophy, but we won the mental war, because in that second half, we peppered them. We didn't let them out of their half. And I said, I've seen enough. The trophy doesn't mean anything to me. The penalty shootout doesn't mean anything to me. What I saw from this Liverpool team dominate a Man City team who, you got to remember, they came off a 100-point season, I believe. I said, I've never seen a Man City team dominated like this. And those players on the pitch will have known, both sets of players, what the real state of play was on that pitch that day. And they looked at me and they were laughing, like literally laughing, like, Chris, get out of here. Like, you know, I was making my debut like Jamie on 90 minutes. And then lo and behold, we went into that season, had the league wrapped up by November, December. But yeah, so hoping something along those lines, a bit of a background story to the Charity Shield. We go again.
Nice.
It'll be amazing. It'll be nice. It'll be, you know, intriguing. So many intriguing battles, tactical. As Evan says, how do we incorporate the big man? How do they incorporate the big man? How do we do without Mane? How do they do without Sterling? So many key battles to be looked into, and we will look into it during the week, guys. Thank you very much for all your precious time. Of course, the usual suspects. And Jamie, thank you very much for coming on today, man. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed chatting to you. Good stuff. People in the chat, there's still 360 of you in here. I hope you guys have all liked the stream. I've really enjoyed listening to these guys. I always enjoy it. They make my job on a Sunday night so beautiful. And I just love listening to these guys, the insight, the debate, the respect. It's just beautiful. This is what it's about, man. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it as much. If you have, like the stream. Even if you haven't, just be a hypocrite and still like it. What's the harm, you know? What's the harm?
Chris, I think we're a nice palate cleanser after Love Island, aren't we? You know, people, you know, watch that toxicity and you get to cleanse your palate and refresh.
Wow.
Before the start of a new week with your favorite Liverpool analysis team.
Wow, I love that shit. Palate cleanser after Love Island, man. People.
I think that's because of my Arsenal comment that Regal subscribed there, because I just had to throw the little Arsenal comment in there. Sorry, guys, I had to do that. I've seen far too much on social media recently, and I know Grizz obviously is second team's Arsenal, so I know he wouldn't like that comment, but you know.
Nah, I ignored it. In fact, I didn't even hear it. That's what
Just joking.
now, people, this has been your REDFELLAS podcast on a Sunday night. We're back. We're back properly next week in terms of talking about a real game that counts, except in Evan's eyes. You know, it's the Charity Shield. It's at Leicester City. It's not at Wembley. Shit, I was going to say it's at Wembley, but it's at Leicester City. But we can't wait to see the Reds in action. Of course, we see them in action before that. We see them against our boys from Red Bull, the other team from Red Bull Salzburg. We'll have a preview. We'll have a post-match show for that as well. So look out for that. And apart from that, it's love from all of us and hope to see you very soon. Take care, guys.